A really good musician, I think, who's been doing it a long time, you have to have faith that all the hours of practice are in the hands. And it's the same, I think, with acting. You've just got to let go and trust that it's all there, so that then you can manage the crazy technical things that you're asked to do.
Gary, this season, we see your character, the unkempt but brilliant Jackson Lamb, in charge of his MI5 losers, but they're his losers, as he calls them, which I love that. We see him kind of go through these other levels that maybe we kind of weren't expecting over the previous 2 seasons. I want to ask you about something that I find really fascinating about this character, which is that in previous Gary Oldman performances, maybe the humor peeks through in little ways as Winston Churchill, as Herman Mankiewicz, as a victim of Hannibal Lecter. But here, the danger is what sneaks through. We love Jackson, but there's a moment when he has purloined a knife from a delicatessen, and we see how dangerous he can be. What's that like? That kind of reversal in some ways of what we kind of are normally kind of expecting from characters.
Well, Jackson, outwardly he gives the impression that he doesn't care very much. He's unkempt, and he uses it to play a game, and it's a defense mechanism and all of that. Yeah. But he sits there with his socks, holes in his socks, and his stinky feet up on a desk, and he does give the impression that he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. But I would say he cares a lot more than most. And you get clues of Jackson as the books progress. I think there's 9 books now. I think he's written another since we started. And you do get clues in the books, but if you went to Mick and you said, Mick Herron, and you said, what I've asked him questions about Jackson Lamb, he'll say, well, if it isn't in the book and it isn't on the page, then I don't know. I haven't thought beyond that. Yeah. But we know that he was an incredibly good agent at one time. And as the series goes on, or the series of books go on, there are little clues that you gather, like little breadcrumbs, to his background and who he is, and maybe what he went through as an agent. So he can really, he can. In the book, he's described. He's a little heavier than me in the book. And I'm look at that body. And God, have you ever seen a sexier man wash his armpits? Someone described me as a garlic bulb that had learned to walk, which I think is a pretty good description, isn't it, really? And so he is not physically particularly agile, but when he moves in the book, he describes him as moving surprisingly quickly for his size. So he's as an agent at Berlin and the various people that he's encountered over the years, procuring a kebab, a knife, and that's all part of the world that he's been living in.
Right. It's like second nature to him now at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's instinct. Yeah. Another thing that I love about your performance is that Jackson is constantly consuming things, whether it's cigarettes or alcohol, a bag of chips, some lamb souvlaki or whatever. It's always got. And then it, of course, is going out in belches, in flatulence, and all sorts of things. Yeah. The one thing that's the opposite of that, though, is the Spycraft. When intel goes into his brain, it never leaves, does it? It's always there. And I love that aspect to him, that he can call up things that he knows from his years of being a spy master at a moment's notice. It's always inside of him, isn't it?
I think there's similarities between him and George Smiley.
Yeah.
I describe George as a sort of owl. You know, there's big eyes, there's big glasses, and that sort of, and he moves at a very slow way, but taking sort of everything in. I mean, Jackson's very much out of that mold. Smartest man in the room.
Yeah.
And even though he'll lead you along to think that he isn't, but then again, that's the game, and that's the Spycraft.
Yeah. Right.
Much of what you see, you know, he does his thinking when you think he's dozing and sleeping at the desk, but he's marinating.
Right.
That's where the work sort of takes place, and of course, you know, to the slow horses, the old man's up there dozing on the sofa, but he's actually, I think, sometimes he is dozing, and sometimes he's hungover, and but he is when it's like a battery or something that's on, is like on charge.
Or a sleep mode. Yeah.
And a sleep mode, but the mind is working.
I love it. Yeah. Even in the doctor's office there, he's not just sleeping on that couch, he's assessing everybody in the room.
Yeah, because then he comes back and he says, there was a guy over there in the corner.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And Lamb, of course, also is brought into focus by his dealings with his team and at Slough House. And I just want to call out that amazing ensemble, because this is a phenomenal ensemble. Please, a round of applause for Jack Loudon, Saskia Reeves, Rosalind Elazar, Christopher Chung, Cardiff Kerwin, Amy Fiona Edwards, the amazing Kristen Scott Thomas, Sophia Canato. They're all fantastic. Gary, I want to ask you about in terms of portraying Lamb and the way he deals with everyone on the team. Do you kind of see him, and you see them a little bit with Saskia Reeves' character, with Sandish, that he deals with them all a little bit differently. And I'm wondering if approaching it as an actor, like you turn the diamond a little bit more, a little differently, so that each interaction he has with each member of his team reveals a little bit more about him, or is certainly a little different than the others, right?
That's very much in the writing. That is very much in the Mick Herron's universe. You know, people have said to me, have asked me, they said, "Oh, Jackson Lamb, you know, and how did you come up with it, and how did you create it?" It's all out of the imagination of Mick. He created the characters and the world. It's so the people in this are so beautifully drawn. The voices, the individual voices of the characters are so beautifully drawn, and more so in the books, because, you know, we have 6 hours to tell it, which is better than a movie, which a 2-hour window. But even with 6 hours, there is, you know, you still feel the pressure to the denouement. You know, you've got to get to you've got to wrap up the plot, the narrative, and so. Some of the character is sacrificed, but specifically what you're talking about is on the page how I react to each character. Now, I have to say, I can't speak to other people who have been in a long series or long form, and how they all get on. I'm sure that they would sit here, and if you ask them, they would say, "Oh, everybody's wonderful," and I love him. You know what I mean? And they might not mean it. You know what I mean? I have to honestly and genuinely can say that it is absolutely a joy to go in and work with these people. We have Lucy Sibic, who does my makeup and hair. She was on Darkest Hour with me. We got Danny, the DP. We have Vincent, who's the operator. We have Guy, who does the costumes, and Georgina. And all these people come back again and again and again. And the cast are the most adorable bunch of people that you could ever really spend time around. So I don't know, maybe, I was saying earlier, Did anyone here see the Vikings, the series? Have you? Right. Can you imagine season 4, and they say, "Oh, we're going to do season 5." You've got mud, you've got freezing cold, you've got tattoos, you're covered in blood, you're on the ice, you're in that water. I think some of them may have rolled their eyes and gone, "Oh, fucking hell, I've got to go back and do that." Oh, shit, we've got to do season 5. You know, they're kind of wishing for the thing to end. And so I watch it and go, "Oh, I've got kudos to you guys, you know." When they say we're doing another Slow Horses, I go, oh God, we're going to go see everyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to see everyone again.
Yeah.
You know, Chris Chung, who plays Ho, he's a darling guy. And Christian I've worked with before. And Jack Loudon is just such a super guy. And I know it sounds like it's gushy, but it really is. I love these guys. Yeah. And we're very, very lucky that we've got producers who are all on the same page. They don't bicker. There's no real arguments. We all get on. So it really is a joy to come in. And I was looking for a part. I've always admired long-form TV, a big fan of it. And I would watch it sometimes with envy because I would think, oh, it must be really, I'd really like a chance to revisit a character and come back on over a long. I've done it with Potter a bit and Batman, but not the same. And I was looking for, something that was maybe the spy genre, because I enjoyed the Tinker experience so much. I was looking for something where I could really have my own accent. I mean, I put a sort of a bit of spin on it, but it's mainly my accent. Where I'm in my own clothes or one costume and I don't have loads of costume changes. I don't want a lot of makeup. I don't want to sit in the chair for hours. So these were all the boxes that you had to tick, you know what I mean? And then Slow Horses comes in and you go, I mean, you know, like someone's up there looking after you.
Right.
So it kind of came in and just fell from the sky, and it did. It literally ticked all the boxes. So it's been a really great experience. Yeah.
And ticks them all so well. It's funny, it's a thriller, it's explosive at lots of moments, it's humane and about humanity and about friends and enemies, and it's about self-deprecating humor and all of that stuff.
And this one feels more, this season feels more personal because it's one of ours.
Right.
So there's an energy and a motivation to resolve this, whatever it is, or whatever they're up to.
Right.
It's good. I feel very lucky. I'm 65, and I'm thrilled to be working. To be honest with you, I mean, it's always nice, isn't it, to be in a gig, to have a gig, and then to do something as nice as this. I feel very, very privileged, very lucky to be doing it. Yeah.
And you mentioned Ho, by the way. I have seen the rest of this season. It's phenomenal. As you guys move along in this season, there's a terrific car ride that Ho and Jackson have. That's really wonderful and really bonds those two characters in a fun way. We've got a room full of actors here, Gary, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about process a little bit. You've mentioned in an interview a couple of years ago about phone acting and how important that is, and you can really tell when somebody's doing it well or not well. And this is a series, obviously, where there's sort of variations on that, especially in Spycraft stuff. There's information that's being given to the audience via people on phones. Kind of talk about how important that is, because it really is sort of a beautiful, subtle art, isn't it? The art of phone acting, as it were, or things like that.
I've always... There's certain things that I have pet peeves with things, like the pouring of coffee or tea or a drink. Pour the coffee and the tea, and it takes the time it takes. Yeah? In season 2, I eat noodles, you know, and Jackson is an eater. You know, now I ate 18 bowls of noodles that day. And then they said, great, okay, we're going to break for lunch. And I said, no, I'm okay. I'm all right. It's that thing of when people push their food around and they're in an eating scene and they're not eating. Now, I know you can't always have a mouthful of whatever and you're doing dialogue, but it really irks me when I see that. It's like, eat the meal, pour the tea, pour the coffee, and yeah, so phone acting is quite, as you say, it's quite delicate art, phone acting, because you're not on the line with the person. Occasionally you'll get a director. I mean, Air Force One, I came in for Glenn Close. She wanted me at the other end of the phone, and I was happy to come in, and I was off in a room somewhere doing it. But more often than not, you have the script supervisor or the first AD reading the phone call. Yeah. So you're not even hearing any of the lines in the phone. The best, if you want to see the Oscar-winning phone acting, like the yellow jersey, green jacket of phone acting, it's 7 minutes long, and it's in All the President's Men. And it's Robert Redford. And it is no cut, just a very, very slow push-in on him over about 7 minutes. And it's the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important because you have to buy that. You have to really believe that character is on the phone. If you just think that he's just giving exposition, it's 50% of its loss. You've got to be able to believe it.
Yeah, and plus the fact, I'd be here on the phone, and you would be hearing it through the phone, but you would be reading it off, sitting over in the corner. So it's one of the odd things about film acting, well, even stage acting. You probably, if you had a phone call, you wouldn't have the person at the end of the phone. But there are these things you're asked to do sometimes. Have you noticed that you forget how to walk through a door? like everything, like getting out of a car. I do it all the time. I walk through doors and open doors all the time. And then suddenly walking through a door and it doesn't feel, it's the weirdest thing. So you're asked to do some things, and I've done enough green screen as well, where you're standing and you're looking at a cross, a bit of gaffer tape, and it's a spaceship landing or a Dementor, and you have to find a way. I think as an actor, it's. Someone once asked me. They said, "How do you remember all those lines?" Which is a question that you sometimes get. And I would initially it was I would brush it off, It's like, it's a silly question, But then I actually gave it some thought once, and I thought, how do I remember all those lines? It's by forgetting everything else. You are focused in the moment, and as a young actor, I was very distracted. I used to get very distracted by the noise on the set. And I remember the lovely Nick Rogue said to me, you got to learn to block that out. It's too distracting. You got to learn to block it out, and not hear it. So it's as much to do, I suppose, in a way, phone acting, and it's as much to do with concentration as anything.
Because you've really got to sort of be in both spaces at once, hearing their conversation and readying your response.
Yeah, I mean, in the first episode, I think River comes in, and then I put on my shirt and my watch and my tie and my jacket and the coat. Yeah. That's harder than sitting there and doing a monologue. I think it's the everyday thing. I put clothes on all the time. I take them off, and then you've got to put them on in order with the dialogue to get to that moment where you've got the coat on as a button, and you walk, and so you are putting the clothes on. You're hopefully by then the dialogue is happening without you even really thinking about it. So you're not particularly focused on what you're saying. The text is in you, but you're putting the clothes on and doing the dialogue, but somewhere you've got to hit that mark and have your coat on by then. And that's that thing when people say, "Oh, I lose myself in the role," and they say, not me, but people say, "Oh man, oh man, I'm just so in the role. And I think there's a lot of BS talked about it. If you were so the character, you would be in an institution.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I was so lost in the moment. Yeah, there are moments when you're in the groove, in the zone, and it's cooking. But what do you do if you're in a play and you're in a comedy? You have to be in the scene and aware that, so you have a laugh line. Wait for the laugh, wait for the laugh, wait. Then you deliver your next line. If you were so lost in the whole reality of it, you would talk over all the laughs. Right. You have to have part of you that is here going, which is technique or whatever it is, but you have to have that conscious part of you going, I'm in this, and I'm trying to make it as real and as believable as possible. But I'm in a comedy, and I'm on stage, and there's an audience. Yeah. And I have a laugh, and I have to wait. And it's the same really with, I think it's the same with film acting. There's got to be part of you, because it's technical. Right. And it's not all about you. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. When people say, "Oh, I can't. My character wouldn't do that." Well, if you don't do that, I remember someone working with Martin Scorsese years ago, and it was dialogue tracking along the street, and they were walking along the street. And then the actor said, and once I get here, maybe, and then I could do this and I could do that and the thing. And Marty said, yeah, it's great, you could do that, but it won't be in the movie because the track stops here. So, yeah, do it. Right. But if you want, but
won't be in the film. Right.
But it won't be in the film. So you have to be. That's the trick. I think that when musicians play, a really good musician, I think, who's been doing it a long time, you have to have faith that all the hours of practice are in the hands. If you're playing the guitar or a piano, you just got to trust that all the work that you've done is in the hands. And it's the same, I think, with acting. You've just got to let go and trust that it's all there, so that then you can manage the crazy technical things that you're asked to do. I mean, I've done a couple of love scenes in my time. They're kind of love scenes, but how. It really is, you're in a room naked with 18 people looking up your butt. It's not very nice. It's not a very nice experience. And I admire when I see actors who do that in movies. It's a strange thing where you're doing it in a room full of all these people.
Yeah, right.
Who are then going, we really need to move on, you know.
Gary, I'm going to kind of follow a line sort of about technique to wrap up, which is about makeup and hair, or the disguises that can be worn. Over the course of 40 years, you have, of course, done many, but including your victory in Darkest Hour. But yes, there's going to be an applause line. Absolutely. But going back to Prick Up Your Ears, you mentioned Nick Rowe, track 29. There's been obviously countless films that you have not worn a lot of makeup. When it's something like Slow Horses, where perhaps it's a little bit of the wardrobe. You've got the coat that is the same color as his cigarette ash, and the stained shirt and everything. That's sort of it, and obviously a little bit of heft. But is it freeing to not be under so much makeup like that? And I'm also wondering if it's also a challenge. You mentioned you're kind of using your actual voice a little bit as Jackson. Is there a kind of a double-edged sword in some ways? It's both very freeing, but it's also a bit of a hurdle in some ways.
Well, I've spent years of disguising myself, and all out of, some obviously through opportunity, because of some of the parts I played, but I would always go to that thing of, how can I not look like me, out of insecurity.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know, you don't like the way you look. I mean, we all have it in some way or another, and you want to disguise it, and you want to, or and I'll think about, it's not that I sketch, but I do think about a character, how sort of often from the neck up, and then worry about, or it's I tell you what, each one is very different. It can come with an accent and a music in the accent that then informs the way that that informs the face as well. Because if you're playing a character he doesn't move his mouth very much, you know what I mean? Then that's gonna inform what happens facially. But I like disguises, I do, and I think it really comes from insecurity. I read somewhere years ago that Laurence Olivier was told that he was very weak here. And he spent the entire rest of his career putting putty on his nose and filling in that spot there, you know what I mean? And you, so I think it's character and insecurity that, and when I'm fully disguised, I'm free. But I don't feel. I feel with very little, I can disappear into lamb using very little. I was terrified of Mank because Fincher said to me, I said, I came up with these ideas, and I went to the photographs. Not that there's a lot of photographs of Mankiewicz, but I went to these photographs and I said, what about this? Can I put on a bit of weight? He's a little heavier than I am. And he said, sure, it's okay. And I said, and we went through all of this, and he said, you don't get it. He said, I want no veil between you and the audience. I want you to be the most naked you've ever been. And I was terrified for a while, because I thought, shit, I'm going to kind of look like me. And he went, yeah, that's the idea. But I think the 25-year-old Gary back then was more insecure and more neurotic than the 65-year-old Gary. and I've kind of mellowed, and it is what it is, isn't it now? I mean, after 42 years of doing this, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. And well, what it is in Slow Horses is phenomenal and so terrific, and it's such a delight. You anchor that amazing ensemble, and you are so terrific in it. If I could ask everybody just to stay in your seats for just a couple of seconds. Gary has got another event to get to, but I also want to comment that all the new episodes that are coming on Apple TV Plus, they are on Wednesdays through December 27th of Slow Horses. Ladies and gentlemen, Gary Oldman, and the show is Slow Horses. Thank you very much.